Lords, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure on behalf of everyone here to welcome the Right Honourable Penny Mordaunt, MP, to this RUSI Land Warfare Conference. We're especially grateful that she's been able to join us at this very busy time in London as we commemorate the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. We recognise and honour the sacrifices that made their success possible and opened the way to the free Europe that we enjoy today. And we also, in doing so, refresh our knowledge that that success was only made possible by close cooperation between the UK, the United States, and their many other allies around a common vision for Europe. And also, I think, by a remarkable domestic political consensus here in the UK supporting that war effort. We can never take either for granted. And as our political leaders here continue to navigate Brexit, and as they seek to strengthen the transatlantic relationship against the new challenges it faces, we wish them every success in both endeavours. Secretary of State, you may be relatively new to this role, but you're not new to defence. You have been and are a Royal Navy reservist and have represented the good people of Portsmouth since 2010 in Parliament. And I know defence is central to your own personal political vision and priorities. And you've already served, of course, as Minister for Armed Forces between 2015 and 2016, before joining the Cabinet as International Development Secretary and then being appointed to your current position just over 1 month ago. And over that month, you've hit the ground running. At RUSI's first Sea Lord conference just a couple of weeks ago, I had the privilege of listening to an excellent contribution to our discussion of maritime power. At the Shangri-La Dialogue only this weekend, Singapore, you represented our country in discussions about Indo-Pacific security. And just today, you made an announcement in relation to the future role of our aircraft carrier, contributing to, when it comes fully operational, to NATO's readiness initiative. So a busy month, and we're looking forward to what you have to say to our conference today. Before asking you to take the podium, just a couple of housekeeping rules. The Secretary of State will be speaking on the record, both in her presentations and in Q&A. And if you could remain seated at the end of the session to allow the Secretary of State and her party to leave in good order before leaving for our drinks reception. Secretary of State, thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. In a few days' time, the nation will pay tribute to those who fought on D-Day. From Portsmouth's Southsea Common to Bayer Cathedral, we will stand in silence, recalling the incredible operations off the coast, in the air, and on the beaches of Normandy. When we commemorate those events this week, what will be in our thoughts? Will it be the landing craft, or the reconnaissance planes, or the supply ships? No. Our focus will be on the veterans and all who made that immense endeavour possible. From the civilians who came together at a moment's notice to build the Mulberry Harbours, wrap up small arms components and sew ID badges, to the merchant sailors that swelled our naval force and enabled the critical transport of men and supplies, to the mighty endeavour of that 62,000 strong British element of the 21st Army Group who charged up the beaches, and those who made the ultimate sacrifice in those dark days. It was, according to Churchill, the most difficult and complicated operation ever taken place. It was so-called ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And it is the testimony of those that were there that will captivate us in the coming days. People like Bill Fitzgerald, just 18 years old, as he, along with his comrades, stormed those beaches. Then as now, it is the people who make the difference. And in defense, if we do not put our people first, we will fail to generate and maintain the capability that we need. And we will have broken that covenant between the state and our communities and those who step up to protect them. As I speak, the men and women of our armed forces are working across the globe, combating terrorism, working with allies and partners to build up the resilience of fragile states, delivering humanitarian aid to those most in need, standing up for our values of democracy, tolerance, and justice, and achieving great things. And I want to put on record my congratulations to Brigadier Celia Harvey, who was selected today to be the Deputy Commander Field Army as a Major General, the third female Army Major General 2-star, and the first female reserve 2-star. My congratulations to her. We often say what an amazing job they do, because they continually provide us with opportunities to say so. We must take care of them while they are serving and after they have served. And that is why we will shortly consult on protecting against repeated investigations and litigations against our veterans and armed forces personnel into historic operations outside the UK. Actions which are not motivated or serve justice, and also consult on paying higher levels of compensation for those injured on combat operations or to the families of those who have been killed. Nor should any soldier, sailor, airman or woman be asked to serve our country and not be sufficiently rewarded. The armed forces are exempt from the living wage, as they are in effect on call 365 days a year. But I'm determined to ensure that the lowest paid members of our armed forces are lifted, to ensure that none of them are below an acceptable salary to live well on. And we are undertaking work to determine what a living wage looks like for those that can be called on day or night. They should get a living wage. And that is what I will be arguing for in the decisions on this year's pay review, and it will be a spending priority for me. It's the right thing to do, but I also recognise that the decision to serve is not motivated by money. People are motivated by what they will be doing and what that achieves in the world and the values that underpin it: protecting, serving, doing your duty for your country. And central to that is to understand what the army is for. That sounds a simple question, but it is one that I am often asked, including by members of the British Army themselves. How can we build connections with our communities? How can we have a strong narrative to recruit if we cannot say what our purpose is? And the reality is, the world is changing and the threats increasing from a diverse range of sources. As earlier speakers have said, cyber attack is the new normal. Between 2016 and 2017, NATO saw such attacks on its infrastructure increasing by 60%. And whether the origin is Russia, China, or North Korea, or from hacktivists, criminals, or extremists, the cyber threat can bring down our national infrastructure and undermine our democracy. All the while, we are having to deal with the hybrid dangers as nations increasingly employ proxy actors to carry out aggression and intimidation at arm's length, but now below the threshold of armed combat. Whatever the correct response to these new forms of aggression, in many cases their deterrence relies on a credible threat of hard power. And the reality is, wars are still won or lost on land. We need to seize and hold territory. And yes, the future may look very different in years to come, but meantime, while armour is still relevant, it must be capable, and we must be competitive. We haven't been. Challenger 2 has been in service without a major upgrade since 1998. During this time, the United States, Germany, and Denmark have completed 2 major upgrades, whilst Russia has fielded 5 new variants with a 6th pending. Warrior is even more obsolete, and is 20 years older than those operated by our key allies. Since Warrior's introduction in 1988, the United States, Germany have conducted 4 major upgrades, and Russia has invested in 3 new variants. So we must invest in our warfighting division. And it is critical that we honour the commitments made in the SDSR to maintain a world-class divisional warfighting capability through upgrades, through new vehicles, equipped to win wars in the information age with advanced sensors, automated search, tracking and detection systems. And at the same time, I am keen that we should not overlook the advantages of more joint ways of working. Look at the successes of the Joint Helicopter Force, which brings all battlefield helicopters under a single command. Why can't we do something similar with robotics and unmanned vehicles across all the services? By building a hub overseen by Joint Force Command. Not only will we be able to work better with industry and have a more integrated approach, but we will also be able to plug into what the rest of government is doing too. At DFID, in my previous job, I did a huge amount of work on drones. New designs able to lift heavy payloads and get medicine and supplies into conflict zones and solve the many headaches that humanitarians were facing. We boosted creativity through challenge funds and set up an innovation hub. And I think we should be doing more of this in defence and supporting growth. In that way, we can create a common mission with the country that is wider than defence. The security and prosperity of the UK, that is what we are for. That is how we will serve our country. And those that put themselves forward to serve are special people. There is more that we need to do to avoid people dropping out of the recruitment and training pipeline. Currently, for every 8 applicants, 1 soldier enters training. And just last year, that figure was 12 applicants for every soldier. So we've made some good progress, but we must do better. And I'm challenging the Army to reduce that ratio to 6-to-1. It's also worth reflecting that once a candidate passes the assessment centre, we still lose up to 7% of applicants before they commence training. And I want us to re-engage with these individuals that have dropped out. Individuals who felt a call to serve. Why did they leave? Was the Army not for them? Have they considered another service? Have they considered a career on the civilian side? If we are serious about bringing up all our forces to the required strength, then we must pursue every register of interest. And we also need to do more to encourage our people to remain in the forces when they are thinking of leaving or have reached the end of their current contracts. We already allow people to transfer between different services, offering quicker recruitment and rapid promotion to those with unique talents. But to say we haven't really sold this is an understatement. We need to make sure that it's not just feasible, but positively encouraged. And it makes sense when the British taxpayer has invested so heavily in a person that we make best use of that person in the service of their country. We have to maximise every efficiency. But in making our pitch to the Treasury, we also need to talk about the full value of defence. And that's not just about jobs in industry, supply chain and services, or export sales, or inventions, or defence engagement, which we often mention. It's also about social mobility and the fabric of our society. The army is a place of great opportunity. You take people from all walks of life, you give them a sense of purpose, belonging and family. Indeed, you give them a home away from home and imbue them with those precious values of courage, discipline, integrity, respect for others, loyalty and selfless commitment. As Army gunner and drummer Hussein Sadiq put it, I ended up finding that the Army's core values were my own. But the Army does something even more than that. It fires ambition. The British Army has a long and proud history of discovering exceptional character and talent in people, which nobody else could see or nobody else bothered to look for. Rebecca Smith from Grimsby was at rock bottom and sleeping rough. She took a decision to walk into an Army careers office. She became a vehicle mechanic with the RUSI and rose rapidly through the ranks to corporal as a Challenger 2 expert. And having been recognised for her exceptional leadership talent, she was recently commissioned from Sandhurst and is now on her young officers training course, returning to the RUSI as a second lieutenant. Her previous hard times now a distant memory. The British Army has taught many to read and write, academic and practical skills, enabling huge numbers of people to have the tools they need to be active citizens. And just as I want to do defence to do more on the UK prosperity agenda, I want us to do more on the social mobility agenda too. At a time of rising knife crime and prevalent gang culture in some parts of the UK, the Army's ethos can make a real difference to young people, and it can offer hope. Defence has so much to offer in our armed forces and our cadet units, but also in the fantastic organisations that sit in our communities alongside us. I've been so struck, in particular, how military preparation colleges have enthused those who other education establishments fail to inspire. They have encouraged study and physical fitness, self-confidence and self-worth, and a sense of duty and service. And they have given some youngsters options where they had none. I believe it's time to use the skills and lessons learned at these colleges and elsewhere in the Army to address this national blight of gangs and weapons on our streets. And so today I wish to announce that in support of the Ministerial Task Force on Serious Violence, that my department will be holding a summit involving military preparation colleges and those working to divert young people away from gangs and violence. We will bring all that we have to offer to this issue. Courage is inspirational. We will never forget what the Army accomplished on D-Day 75 years ago, and it still inspires us today. An achievement which was founded not on having the most powerful weapons, but on having people equipped with extraordinary courage, ingenuity, and determination. Today's Army shares those qualities, and our people are going out of their way across the globe to make a difference, protecting innocence, lifting people out of poverty, and providing hope for others from Estonia to Afghanistan, from Iraq to South Sudan. Yet as we look into the future, an age where the dangers are changing and growing, we will depend on our people more than ever. So we must look after them like never before. That is my priority. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Secretary of State. We'll now take a few questions. We have relatively few questions on Slido so far, so if you wish to ask a question, please do so there. Now, I'm just trying to see where I have. There's a gentleman right in the back. I think it's Ben Barry. Please.
Thank you, Malcolm. Could I ask the Secretary of State under what circumstances she sees British troops deployed in a combat role, not as advisors, not doing Kabul security, but actually going into the combat zone, which for the last 5 years, in British forces terms, has been the role of drones in special forces?
Do you want me to take that now? Well, I think there may be scenarios where that will take place. I mean, one thing that I think we've always been pretty consistent on is being very bad at predicting what scenarios we might face in the future. What we have to do through the SDSR process, but also every day, is to look at those emerging threats, look at the scenarios that might follow from them, and build and generate a force that is the most flexible and capable that it can be. So there will be occasions when we may have to do that, and I think it is my job to make sure that we are ready to do that. We need to also keep investing in capabilities that we need whilst we're also generating those future capabilities. But I think across all three services, they're doing that. They have good plans in place. There will be finely balanced judgments to make as we look at where we put the investment, but we need to be doing both of those things.
Very good. Right, we've got the gentleman who's holding the microphone first, and then the lady just in front. Please.
Decision Analysis Services. You mentioned prosperity. HMG is doing a survey on social values, which I think places other things you've said, and I wonder whether you can say a bit more about how you see the Army and the MOD playing into this social values survey and benefiting the country in prosperity terms.
Let me just take a couple of questions, if I may. Please.
Thank you. Abigail Watson, the Oxford Research Group. I wonder how much protecting soldiers also comes to better communicating the strategy for which they're deployed. How much should we be communicating with the public around the operations that they're deployed on and rallying support and awareness for them?
Mm-hmm. Right, please.
So I think, I mean, this is the main motivation for this is not the CSR, but I think that we do need to tell the story about the value that defence provides better. We do often talk about when we point to bits of kit, we do maps for members of the House of Commons to show that someone in their constituency contributed to it and it's important. We do all of that, but what we don't do is talk about the research, the innovation, the connections between defence and non-defence sectors. We don't have sector deals, and we don't talk about the contribution we make to social mobility, to education, which is enormous. There are so many amazing and compelling stories that I hear every day about the difference that we've made to an individual's life. So I think we have to find ways of not just plugging into what's already in existence, whether it's the industrial strategy, whether it's looking at social value and what we contribute to society, but also we're looking at setting up some new things actually in the department itself. And I think one of the things that we should be developing is a prosperity board that would have membership from outside the immediate defence sector, but looking at the connections, for example, maritime technologies that I've spoken about in my speech today. I think that if we did that, we just worked in a more joined-up way across Whitehall. I mentioned what we were doing at DFID with drones, but Department of Transport, BAYS, many other departments are doing these things, but we're not doing it together, and that's nuts. So I'm looking to really try and create those forums where they don't exist, so that as we go into the CSR and beyond, we're absolutely positioned for people to understand why they need to keep investment in defence very strong. And to your point, I think we still have to do a lot of work to build up trust. The fact we've had to have a parliamentary check on deploying our armed forces because of history and previous operations and how they were communicated, we have a lot to do to still maintain that trust with the public. I think that is really important because it's about also us keeping faith with those people that we're there to serve and protect, but also whose taxes enable us to do the things that we think are important. So I think absolutely we need to communicate this. We need to ensure that all the processes that are governing that, Whitehall and in Parliament and elsewhere, are fit for purpose. And that's been a big focus of my first few weeks.
Right, let me take a bundle of questions now because the hands are starting to appear like a forest. There's a gentleman at the back first.
Thank you, Dominic Nichols from the Telegraph. On the military preparation colleges, what extra value do you see the Army being able to add to those? And do you think there's benefit in those values and standards being rolled out to other educational establishments? Thank you.
And then there's a gentleman just about 3 rows further in front. Yes, please. Please.
May I congratulate you on your magnificent speech, almost Churchillian. Can I remind you that, going back to the age I'm concerned about, the Second World War, that when Mountbatten spoke to Ernest Bevin, who was the Labour Minister, he said, I want to have men who can handle craft in shallow waters. Our naval ships are too big and they're not experienced in that sphere. And so Ernest Bevin said, yes, I can find you somebody. I can find you trawlermen, all the trawlermen who were reserved occupation. Many of them joined what was called the Millionaire Navy. Have you heard of that? No. Well,
right.
It was paid. They were paid £7 a week the moment they got to Pompeii.
Is there a question? Sorry, is there a question?
Well, yes. My question is that when I'm president of the Atlantic Council of the United Kingdom, I'm very concerned about what we have been discovering speaking in schools. That's our specialist, schools and universities. And I'm hoping that as Secretary of State, you'll try and find time to strengthen the opportunities for
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have to move on to other questions, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Oh, right.
When you have an opportunity to look at that aspect, you do need to get up the young.
Great. Thank you. Right, I'm going to take a question from Slido now, which is as follows. What actions are the government taking to address the inequality of lawfare by those seeking to undermine trust in our institutions through targeting veterans? Secretary of State, perhaps you could answer the questions we've had.
Yes, certainly. So let me start with that one. This is an issue I know that has been around for a very long time, and I think we've just got to get on with this. And I think that the situation has been complicated because of our obligations under the Stormont House Agreement in Northern Ireland. But I think that sort of sitting around and waiting for a solution to arrive is not serving our veteran community well. So I'm going to be doing a number of things, but the 2 critical things to try and close down what is an industry that has grown up around our operations is to firstly find an answer for other theatres. So we are going to be very shortly, in a few weeks' time, starting a public consultation which is going to look at some suggestions as to how we shut down that litigation, how we restore the primacy of international humanitarian law to govern these operations. And also, it's not about an amnesty, it's not about cutting off justice being served. It's really setting a threshold for people going back over historic allegations that quite often have been investigated, in some cases, as we saw with IHAT, even resolved. We've had cases submitted to IHAT that were closed cases. Another, a soldier of another nation had admitted responsibility, compensation paid, and yet their name was erased from the case and it was submitted to IHAT, clocking up the 4 hours worth of legal aid that was paid on each case to that investigations unit. So we need to shut that down. We've got suggestions how we do that, and we want to make very swift progress, and if legislation is required, we're looking for the first vehicle that we can bring forward that legislation. With regard to Northern Ireland, because although the situation is different, our obligations to our veterans are exactly the same. We do not want them to be pursued for historic allegations if those incidents have been looked at or there's no new evidence. So for that, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland is looking at how they progress that issue. And what I have agreed with her is that we will have a formal input where we can, A, make sure the voice of the veteran community is heard and the impact this is having on them. And by the way, the impact it's also having on our operations as people distort their behavior to compensate for this litigious environment. But also, we will be able to put on record our learnings from IHAT. IHAT was set up with the best intentions. It was set up to try and keep British soldiers out of the International Criminal Court and investigate cases which needed to be investigating. And those handful of cases, because of the legal aid regime that was around it, spiraled out of control. And we can be forgiven, I think, for that happening once. The motivations were good. The people working in IHAT were good people trying to do their best. But if we do it again, if we repeat that again, I don't think we can be forgiven for that. So I'm determined that we will not. So we're taking action on both fronts. And also we're going to be consulting on a number of other things as well, which I hope our armed forces will approve of. Sorry, I didn't catch the middle question. I just was going to answer the Military Preparation College question. Sorry, sir, but it was good to hear you mention some of the other activity that was going on surrounding D-Day. Military preparation colleges, I think, are extremely good. I've got one in my constituency, and it's done amazing things. Quite a lot of those attending go on to go into service. And they have a particular ethos about the whole person. It's about their physical fitness, it's about their mental attitude, as well as their academic results and the practical skills that they are learning. I want to get those people in the same room as people who are directly trying to divert people away from gang culture, trying to enable those people to be safe and turn their lives around. I think we have a huge amount that we could offer to that problem. But one of the fantastic things about all three services is that they're not just involved in education centres on their own bases and with their own people, they're also out in the community. I've got a fantastic example in Portsmouth, in my patch, of a university technical college where the Navy is partnering there. There's great examples in every service. And we need to tell this story better, because actually the contribution defence makes to the nation is immense. And we really do need to keep that well understood and strong, not just at the Treasury, but actually in every community in the UK.
Do you have time for just a couple
sure.
of more? Very good. I think it's David Bond, please.
Yes, thank you, Malcolm. David Bond from the Financial Times. Secretary of State, in the past, US generals have come to this conference and expressed concerns about the size of the British Army. Can you give a commitment, a guarantee to this room
that the size of the army won't be cut below 80,000 in the future.
And Deborah Haynes, please. Microphone here.
Actually, Larissa was first, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Larissa Brown from the
Could you
Daily
stand
Mail.
up?
Yes.
Thank you.
Secretary of State, your predecessor took a very tough stance on the issue of foreign fighters in Syria, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on whether the UK should let these people back and whether you'd be willing to let British soldiers go and rescue them. And also, if I may, a very cheeky question. Will you be putting your hat in the ring for leader of the Tory party? Thank you.
That is a cheeky question. Deborah.
Thank you. Deborah Haynes from Sky News. President Trump's in town, in case you haven't noticed. I was wondering, he's talked an awful lot about how important the UK is and the UK alliance between the two countries. Iran is obviously an issue that's current. America has sent additional troops to the region, an aircraft carrier task group. We understand that there's going to be evidence presented to the Security Council on what happened to those Saudi tankers and the other 2 tankers that were hit. Is the UK planning to send additional resources to that region, given the fact that we share the view about the threat? Thank you.
Secretary of State.
Well, just on that last point, we are absolutely in the same place with our American allies on this. Our assessment of the situation is the same. Although you tempt me, I'm not going to discuss potential future operational deployments, but obviously this is a live issue and we're monitoring it very carefully, and the NSC will make its decisions on things in due course. With regard to the size of the army, I think that when we write SDSRs, we should deliver them. And whether it's equipment, whether it's strength, we should deliver them. So on my shift, and I think for some time to come, I don't think you'll see those numbers alter. What I do think is important, though, is that we deliver on them. I have been looking at ways with my colleagues in the Army as to how we actually ensure that we have the pipeline of people coming in, how the investments that we're making in individuals are really translating to the full value that they could be. We want to also make sure that we're meeting those other targets on recruiting women and people from diverse backgrounds too, and that we're giving those people the opportunity for the career that their talents will give them in those services, so that they're able to take command, they're able to have a full career in our armed forces. So I think we should deliver on SDSRs, not just write them and then roll back from them. And we also need to be realistic about what that costs. So if we're planning on the basis of not paying salaries to people who we're trying to recruit because we don't think we will, that's a bad place to be. So I'm going to be focused on a lot of the dry detail as to how I can help the Army and the other services meet those recruitment targets. And in my comments today, I hope I've made it clear that I think we do need that hard power. That's certainly the public's ambition. That's what we want to do. And it won't just be on training missions and other things. It will be the full spectrum of things that we will want the British Army to do. And then finally, just I think, and I hope you all agree, I think the focus this week should be on D-Day veterans and not anything else. So nice try with the cheeky question. Obviously, the issue that you have raised is a matter that the NSC takes a judgment on. I think it's absolutely right that we put front and centre of any decision that we take the protection of the United Kingdom and citizens. In my previous job, I was very concerned and wanted to build up a very clear picture of where children were who had been taken into these camps. The situation as it is at the moment, where access is very difficult, may be very different in 6 months' time. Quite a lot of children are hidden, they're given different identities, and I think that the British public would absolutely agree that we do not want to do anything that makes this country less safe, but I think also we have an obligation to innocents who were taken into a war zone and maybe being hidden there. Of course, even if you allow for those obligations, we still, extracting them is going to be an incredibly difficult situation to do, and would, I think, in all practical honesty, require the consent of the parents who were there. So I think that is the right approach that we're taking. But we also have to recognise that even if we do not wish to take people back and put them through a justice system here, we have to come up with the international community to an answer to the fact that we have spent a lot of, collectively, blood and treasure rounding up and detaining individuals. And I think that to create a situation where they disappeared, whether they went back, whether they moved to other nations, even nations very far away, that would be a dereliction of our duty. So I think we need to come up with answers to these very difficult problems, and that is a focus of the National Security Council.
Secretary of State, you've already, I think, answered many more Q&A than we were programmed for. You've run about 15 minutes over time, so I don't want to abuse your presence here any longer. So I think we'll draw it to a close there. So if you join me in thanking Secretary of State for
thank you very much. Thanks.